Imagine this: you're sitting at your desk, the screen is on, time is passing. You haven't really done anything, yet you feel exhausted. You open a page, and 30 seconds later, you can't even remember why you clicked it. You keep refreshing, switching, drifting, but deep inside, there's a growing emptiness. Not because you're lazy. Not because you lack intelligence. But because you're confronting something unsettling, you are losing the ability to focus. What's more disturbing is that this isn't just happening to you. It's happening to an entire generation. There was a time when you could sink into a book, a thought, a task for hours. Now, ask yourself to sit quietly for 5 minutes, no phone, no notifications, no stimulation, and a strange anxiety creeps in. Restlessness takes over, as if something vital is slipping away from you. Have you ever asked yourself this question: why, in a world with more tools, more information, and more freedom than ever before, are we becoming less and less able to focus? By all logic, this world should make you more efficient. Faster internet. Smarter algorithms. Endless convenience, everything designed to serve you. Yet the opposite happens. Your attention is shattered into fragments. Your thoughts are interrupted before they can fully form. Your inner world grows louder, but shallower. You might tell yourself it's just stress. Just busyness. Just too much screen time. But if you're honest, you'll sense something deeper. Because the loss of focus is not merely a problem of attention, it's a collapse of your way of being. When you can't focus, you can't truly think. When you can't think, you can only consume. And when you only consume, your values, desires, even the thoughts you believe are your own, begin to be quietly shaped by forces outside of you. You think you're choosing. In reality, you're reacting. You think you're living. In truth, you're being pushed. And so a more brutal question emerges: if you cannot control your own attention, are you truly alive? What if the erosion of focus isn't an accident of technology, but a structural outcome? Not a side effect, but something carefully cultivated, gradually normalized. Once you begin to see this, you'll realize that the crisis of attention hides something far deeper, something darker, and far closer to the truth of who you are. And that is what we must face next. You think this is a matter of willpower. You believe that if you were just more disciplined, more ruthless with yourself, you could regain your focus, but here is the unsettling truth: you are not weak, you have been systematically trained to be unfocused. Carl Jung once said, "Whoever looks outside, dreams. Whoever looks inside, awakens." Our generation is not awakening. We are collectively drowning in excessive external stimulation. Your inability to focus is not a failure of attention. It is the result of your psychological energy being constantly pulled away from the inner world and redirected toward external validation, likes, notifications, endless feeds, emotional headlines. These are not neutral tools. They are reshaping your psyche. Nietzsche warned that a person surrounded by constant information without reflection would eventually lose their capacity for depth, becoming nothing more than a creature of reaction. Ask yourself, are you thinking, or are you merely being triggered? Are you choosing where your attention goes, or is it being chosen for you? From a psychological perspective, focus is not a technique. It is a state of being. And that state requires one condition: the ability to remain unstimulated, unvalidated, and unentertained for extended periods. Modern society has taken that away. Schopenhauer believed that those who cannot tolerate solitude will inevitably flee into distraction. Today, distraction is no longer leisure, it is anesthesia. You are not incapable of focus. You are addicted to being filled with noise. Filled with emotion. Filled with stimulation. never allowing emptiness to exist, yet true focus is born from emptiness. Jung called this the capacity to enter dialogue with the self. But when your mind is constantly bombarded, always reacting, always defending, that inner space disappears, something darker then emerges. You begin to fear focus itself, because focus requires silence. And silence forces you to face yourself, your unresolved anxieties, your emptiness, your unanswered questions. So you reach for your phone again. Not because you want to, but because you are afraid to stop. This is the real reason we are losing our ability to focus. It is not a productivity issue. It is not a technological problem. It is an existential escape, and this is only the beginning. If attention is collapsing, what else is collapsing with it? That question leads us somewhere far more uncomfortable, and far more real. When attention collapses, identity follows. The collapse of attention is never just about lower productivity. That's only the surface symptom. What is truly falling apart is something far more fundamental, the continuity of the self. Have you noticed this change in yourself? You find it harder and harder to stick with anything. Not because you lack interest, but because the feeling of continuously being someone is slowly disappearing. Psychology rarely talks about this, but the truth is simple: a stable personality requires continuity over time. In other words, a coherent self can only be formed through long-term, deep, repeated psychological investment, but when your attention is constantly fragmented, your personality fragments with it. You begin to live as an instant version of yourself. One thought replaces another, one emotion overrides the last, and moments later, you can't even remember what you were just thinking about. Carl Jung described this condition as an unintegrated personality. And an unintegrated personality has one defining trait above all else: it is extremely easy to control, because when a person lacks an inner center, they are forced to rely on external signals to answer the question, who am I? Today, you feel validated by likes. Tomorrow, you feel crushed by being ignored. Today, you're enraged by one narrative. Tomorrow, you're pulled in the opposite direction by another. You assume this is just normal life in the information age. But philosophically speaking, this is a form of soft psychological disintegration. Nietzsche would have called this the birth of the last man. Not someone oppressed by force, but someone who willingly abandons depth, flees from inner tension, and refuses the burden of becoming themselves. And the most terrifying consequence is this: when attention can no longer endure, humans lose the ability to truly love, believe, or take responsibility. Love requires sustained attention. Belief requires the endurance of doubt. Responsibility requires patience with the future. But a fragmented mind can only process immediate stimulation. So relationships grow shallow. Convictions become thin. Life goals start to resemble trending topics. They rise quickly, and disappear just as fast. Dostoevsky saw this coming long ago. He believed that a person who cannot tolerate inner tension will eventually choose to escape freedom itself, and today, we use entertainment, information, and busyness to quietly give up the task of becoming a whole human being. So the real question is no longer, why can't we focus? The real question is this: when an entire society loses the ability to focus, what kind of people does it ultimately create? This isn't exaggeration. This is already happening, and next, we must confront an even more uncomfortable question: who benefits from all of this? How to break out of the attention prison. Real rebellion does not begin with changing the world. It begins with refusing to let your mind be constantly occupied. This is the first truth most people resist. Your inability to focus is not a personal failure, it is a trained condition. And what is trained can be untrained, but only if you're willing to do something deeply uncomfortable, to go against the direction of the entire system, because the modern world does not reward depth. It rewards responsiveness, speed, availability, endless participation. To focus deeply today is no longer neutral behavior, it is a form of quiet resistance. Think about this: every notification you ignore, every impulse you refuse to follow, every moment you stay with a single thought longer than necessary, you are reclaiming something that was taken from you, not time. Authority over your inner world. Philosophers understood this long before algorithms existed. Nietzsche believed that becoming oneself required distance from the crowd, distance from noise, distance from constant stimulation. Jung went even further. He argued that individuation, the process of becoming a whole human being, demands solitude, not as loneliness, but as a psychological container where attention can finally settle. Notice how radical this sounds today. Solitude is now treated as a problem to be solved. Silence feels suspicious. Boredom feels dangerous, but boredom is not the enemy of focus. Boredom is the doorway to depth. When stimulation disappears, the mind panics at first. It reaches outward. It looks for distraction, but if you stay, if you don't escape, something else emerges. Thoughts begin to connect. Emotions surface that were buried under noise. Questions appear that cannot be answered in 15 seconds. This is why the system trains you to avoid stillness. Because stillness produces insight. And insight produces independence. History's most lucid minds all shared one trait: they protected their attention with near-religious discipline. Marcus Aurelius withdrew inward while ruling an empire. Schopenhauer structured his entire life around uninterrupted thinking. Even modern creators who reshape culture do not multitask, they disappear. Not because they are antisocial, but because attention is the raw material of meaning. Here is the counterintuitive truth: you don't regain focus by forcing yourself to concentrate harder, you regain focus by removing what fragments you. Less input. Fewer opinions. Slower consumption, not to become ignorant, but to become selective. This is not productivity advice. This is existential survival. Because when you choose what deserves your attention, you are choosing what kind of person you become, and that is the beginning of rebellion. But there is still one final layer beneath all of this, a truth so uncomfortable that most people never reach it, and it changes everything: why emotional breakdown is not a crisis, but a message. What if your emotional collapse was never a malfunction? What if it was the last honest signal your mind could send you? Here is the truth most people never want to face: emotional breakdown is not caused by weakness, it is caused by endurance. You did not fall apart because you were fragile. You fell apart because you stayed functional for too long in a life that was quietly erasing you. Every time you swallowed your anger to stay agreeable. Every time you ignored your exhaustion to stay productive. Every time you told yourself, "This is fine," when it wasn't, you were teaching your nervous system one lesson: your real self is not welcome here. So your psyche adapted. It learned to compress emotions. To delay grief. To postpone truth. Until the pressure had nowhere else to go. An emotional breakdown is not chaos. It is truth, released without permission. This is why breakdowns often feel so confusing. You are not just overwhelmed, you are suddenly undivided. For the first time in years, what you feel and what you live are no longer separated. Jung understood this with frightening clarity. He wrote that neurosis is often the soul's protest against a life that denies its own meaning. In other words, when you betray yourself long enough, your psyche rebels, and modern society makes this betrayal almost inevitable. You are rewarded for emotional control, but punished for emotional honesty. You are praised for resilience, but not for authenticity. So you learn to survive by splitting yourself in two, the version that functions, and the version that feels, but no human being can sustain that division forever. Eventually, the suppressed self demands to be seen. And when it does not ask politely. This is the moment most people misinterpret as losing control. But control was the problem. The breakdown is not telling you to fix yourself. It is telling you to stop abandoning yourself. Healing does not begin by returning to normal, because normal was the condition that broke you. It begins when you ask a question so dangerous that everything must change to answer it. What part of me have I been silencing just to belong? The moment you listen, truly listen, the breakdown stops being an ending that it becomes a crossing that a threshold, not into comfort, not into certainty, but into alignment, and alignment, once tasted, cannot be forgotten. That is why some people never recover from a breakdown. They awaken from it.